We are back, baby, and boy do we have a topic for you today. It's going to be another crochet with me coffee chat, and today's topic is Brooke Schofield and whether or not people could change. Oh wait, I want to put on my necklace that I made. If you want to see all the crafts I'm doing in my new series on TikTok, then go follow me there. I'm really not smashing it over there, guys, but give your girl some support. But I'm gonna go get it. So cute. I made it out of the band that I made my Fitbit bracelet out of, the extra chain that I had. So we're gonna put this on. So cute. All right, now that I've showed you that, let's go. So if you don't know who Brooke Schofield is, I actually didn't know who she was until she started posting about Clinton Kane, who is her ex, who is allegedly someone who's lied about his accent and his past and his mother not being alive anymore, like some really crazy drama, and that's the first that I ever heard of her. But then I was surprised to see that she's actually a really big creator, and she's a host of a really famous podcast called Cancelled. And I can see now that I probably am not the target demographic for her content, and maybe that's why I wasn't aware of who she was until she went viral for her Clinton Kane drama, which I've talked about this before. It just shows like how big of a place the internet is, that someone can be, you know, the most famous content creator to one person, and then to another person who spends a lot of time online, like me, I can have no idea who that person is. Like, it's crazy. And then this happened. We're going to talk about her apology towards the end of this video, so stay tuned for that. But I think these tweets gives us the opportunity to have an important conversation about unlearning racism and whether or not people can change. Especially if you grew up with racist family members or in a community that's very racist, then yeah, I'm not surprised that you're going to also hold some racist beliefs. But the question is, can they ever actually change? Which, spoiler alert, I do think people can change. I'm not going to claim that this is the case for Brooke because I don't really know much about her character beyond seeing all of this drama. So I don't really have anything to say on whether or not she as an individual can change. So it's no secret that our upbringing informs our worldview, and that a lot of people just mimic whatever it is that their parents or the people who raised them, in Brooke's case it was her grandparents, we will mimic their behavior and attitudes. And I think we probably all have experiences of someone close to us, whether it's a family member or a teacher or a friend, saying things that we don't agree with, or having political opinions we don't agree with, or being downright racist, whether it's through stupid racist jokes that they're just repeating, or if it's something more evil and sinister, like genuinely spreading the belief that they think certain people are inferior to them. And a lot of people online, when discussing this situation with Brooke Schofield, have been talking about their own experiences growing up with racist parents. And some of them saying, oh, my family was like that too, I totally get it, Brooke, but like we change and we grow. And some people being like, I was raised that way as well, but I never, spewed hatred. I had to unlearn it, but I didn't actively like tweet out. And I think it's difficult because if you have a racist or ignorant family member that you're quite close to and that you look up to, I would like to think that you would be smart enough to know right from wrong and to not want to participate in the same behavior, even if it's all you've been shown. However, I don't think all people are that smart. And that's not even a dig. That is truly just some people are not very intelligent and they're going to do whatever it is that they're told to do by their elders. And I want to emphasize, I genuinely do not mean that as like a read on Brooke or anyone else. And that's really just my opinion. And something that's interesting is that there have been studies that show that a parent's opinions or attitudes towards race don't necessarily mean that the child will have those same opinions or attitudes. It was found that children's racial attitudes did not match those of their mothers, with children having more pro-white attitudes than their mothers. Additionally, the mothers incorrectly predicted that their children did not have racial biases, and the children also incorrectly predicted their mother's racial attitudes. That is a mouthful, first of all, but it's also a bit scary because it's saying, I'm assuming that there's a bit of self-selection in this process where someone who's actively, racist and proud of it probably isn't going to participate. And for that reason, it's actually a bit scary that the mothers who chose to participate in this study most likely do not see themselves as racist, and there's a good chance that they're not racist at all, yet their children are still showing more pro-white attitudes than they are. Now, why would that happen? Because of what they actually see in the world and perhaps in their mother's behavior. So the way I would say is that it goes beyond the home. Like, racism is everywhere and it is so prevalent in our society. There's this psychologist named Beverly Daniel Tatum, and she's the former president of Spelman College, which is a historically Black women's college. And she compares racism to smog, writing that it is something we all breathe in, no one is immune to it. So even though these mothers in this study, for example, did not see their children as racist, I don't think most mothers would want to ever see their children as racist, or rather than saying racist, holding racial biases, because they're children. I don't think children ever actively choose to be racist, but they will have biases. They do allow themselves to be blind to the biases that their children have and what may be causing these biases. And there actually is a lot of literature on how to raise anti-racist children. And it goes beyond saying, oh, we are all equals, we are all the same. What I understood is that there has to be a balance between positive conversations that do reinforce the idea or the fact that we are all equal, but also important discussions need to be had with children that talk about discrimination that does occur and why it is important to be anti-racist. And what's more, a parent's words, if they are to impact their children in a positive way, those words need to be reflected in the parent's actions. Kristen Schutz, PhD at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, found that at age 3, white children are equally likely to befriend Black or white children. But by the age of 4 or 5, that's just 2 years later, and it's still extremely young, white children are more likely to choose other white kids as friends. So can we unlearn that shit? Because that is heavy. That is heavy that parents themselves, who hopefully know their children better than anyone, at least at a young age, can't even predict their children's racial biases. And it's also quite heavy that children as young as 4 or 5 will start to act on these biases. But it makes sense because it's what they see in the world around them and they're going to mimic it. There was this opinion piece in CBC Canada. This 63-year-old man, who is a registered psychiatric nurse, wrote in his opinion piece that he used to be racist. I'll just read directly from his opinion piece because I found it pretty interesting. Still, regardless of the changes I've made, I think about whether I could backslide. In some ways, I'm like an alcoholic who has stopped drinking, but must always be on guard against drinking again. I will always have my memories of who I was and how I acted, and I cannot change the fact that I was racist. This man is 63. He is far older than Brooke Schofield, or what is her name? Brooke Schofield, I don't know. From what I understand from his opinion piece, he says that his racism was reflected in his work as a nurse, which is terrifying, especially as a psychiatric nurse. And that's a healthcare professional. Like, we hear a lot about healthcare professionals holding, subconscious or completely fully conscious biases that harm patients and can even put their livelihood at risk. So that's no laughing matter at all. And it's disappointing that people allow that to happen. So I don't know if we can commend this 63-year-old man for changing well into adulthood, but we can commend, I don't even know if I want to say commend, but we can somewhat appreciate his efforts to acknowledge this, even if it's too little too late. I highly recommend reading this profile in The Guardian, which is about a man who was raised by one of the most famous white nationalists in history. And somewhat similar to this Dale Wallace nurse turned opinion writer, is that he didn't change until he was an adult, but it was more in college that he changed. And he talks about some of the horrible things that he wanted to do to people who were not white as a teenager. But then he also talks about going to college and meeting people from different backgrounds and being curious about their political beliefs and wanting to understand them. He talks about becoming a billboard for his father's beliefs and feeling proud to be white, but also being somewhat uncomfortable with his own pride. His shame went so far as only having kids through adoption because he didn't want to further his lineage. He knew that he was a broken person, suffering abuse from his father, and being very confused by the beliefs he was brought up with. As a father, he started reading philosophy, he started going to counseling, and started truly working on unlearning and deconstructing the whole belief system that he was brought up with. That is someone who has changed, and has changed what seems like for the right reasons, not because they got caught. You know, this isn't someone who was famous. It was someone who saw the fault in their ways and wanted to move forward. Obviously, this is a really extreme example, but it just goes to show that yes, people can change in adulthood. I do truly believe that, but it's more than just a blanket apology because you got caught. It's actively doing the work and challenging yourself in, you know, like years of therapy and showing remorse and apologizing with action, not just with words. So now let's get into what counts as a real apology. I think a real apology does not pander only to the people who you want to be accepted by. It should serve to address the people who you have actually hurt with your actions, and pretty much only them. The main criticism I've seen of Brooke's apology is one, that it only came about because she got caught, and two, that she's been liking comments that are just, you know, relating to her, saying, I was raised the same way, good on you for addressing this. Especially her comments about TRAYVON MARTIN contributed at that time, and even now, to so much of the hateful rhetoric that was going around that specific case, which is horrifying and extremely hurtful to so many people. And in that same vein, I think a real apology also doesn't seek to explain your way out of the thing that you're apologizing for. And this is difficult because I do think the context of, you know, growing up really poor, her parents were addicts, and then she was raised by racist grandparents, like that is somewhat important and useful to helping us understand why someone would say something like this. But it's not relevant to the apology itself, if that makes sense. And it kind of feels like the goal with this apology was to allow her fans who look like her to feel good about continuing to support someone with those beliefs that they disagree with. Now, I do hope that she takes some real action, maybe donating to the TRAYVON MARTIN Foundation, or spreading awareness about gun violence or something like that. And I hope that simply because it's the right thing to do, but also for the people of color who were her fans. I wasn't one of them, so I don't know how it feels to be a fan of hers and be disappointed by this, but I can imagine it doesn't feel great. Let's not put people on a pedestal. That's all I gotta say on the subject. I do want to read one more quote on raising anti-racist children, and this is from this article. It can be effortful for parents to find opportunities for kids to see people who look different than they do. Choosing diverse communities in schools, interacting with babysitters or teachers from other groups, even pen pal programs that connect children from different backgrounds can all be ways to start breaking down barriers. Parents would also do well to look critically at their own interactions. If you're telling children you value diversity, but you have no diversity in your friendships, kids pick up on that conflicting information. Long story short, what we tell children, and maybe in our case, if we're probably both not parents, what we tell our peers has to reflect our actions if we want it to actually matter. Anyways, I hope you did enjoy this video. Sorry it's not really a fun one. Well, actually, I'm not sorry. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Please join me for the next one. It will be a vlog. Thank you so much for being here. Please do like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and see you next week. Bye.